Hey, everybody. Tom Caps here with podcast episode number 15.
Mm-hmm.
Number 15. Wow. We're getting there. So, bird joke of the day. I got a little help from Rob behind the scenes here. So I'm going to make sure I laugh at it. So why do birds fly south for the winter?
Why?
Because it's too far to walk. Ta-da! Best dad joke. Good job, bro.
Thank you.
I can only have so many in my head at any given time, so sometimes I need a little help. So, all right. So today's subject is what we decided to do is make a couple of these podcasts. We're going to talk about specific situations that we run into where people struggle. Mm-hmm. And we used to struggle with this a lot, and sometimes still do, quite frankly. But so we're going to talk about loading dock doors, warehouse doors, just doors in general. You know, there's like, people, when people walk in, doors open. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to shut behind you. Sometimes they don't. So there's entry points, and birds find these entry points because they want to get inside buildings. And the reason they want to get inside buildings is to get out of the weather most of the time. Sometimes there's a food source, water source, but basically they want to be inside, food, shelter, nesting, a bunch of reasons why they want to be inside.
Yeah.
So, and when you have doors open all the time, we have a loading dock situation. You may have, 30 doors and they're open all the time. You get to like one of these delivery companies where they have, 30 trucks being loaded at a time. They go out to deliver things. Doors are wide open on both sides. So birds have easy access in and out, in and out. And you're never going to stop all the birds from coming in. But it becomes a hassle because these birds will land on the beams up above, workstations, and they just poop all over the place. We had a place in Bangor, Maine years and years ago. Customer will remain unnamed. It was the worst place. We actually went and did the inspection. We had to use umbrellas to walk through this place. That's how many birds were there. Thousands of birds. And the people were working with umbrellas over their heads. It was unbelievable. So it can that was an extreme. It could get bad. But birds, they poop and the feces, they get dry, and then people breathe them in, they get sick, and it's a hassle. So there's OSHA issues. If it's a food processing plant, if you have a pallet of, bread, for instance, and they get one dropping out, they have to throw the whole pallet away. Mm-hmm. So it can be a hassle. So, how do you stop birds from getting in buildings? So we come up with a bird control program. So we always do programs. There's no one thing that stops the birds anywhere, ever. Yeah. It's always multiple things. It's always visual with multiple consequences. Sometimes it's multiple visuals with consequences. Mm-hmm. But we added a new tool to our arsenal this year, which is really making a difference. So we have these ozone dispensers. That's like our first line. So what we do is we will mark the outside of a door, whether it be a man door, loading dock door, garage door. We'll mark the outside of that door with UV paint. And then we'll take one of the ozone boxes and hang it above the door. If there's a canopy outside, a covered canopy that's 3 or 4 or 6 feet, we can put it outside right above the door. If there's no canopy, a lot of warehouses, there's no canopies outside. Or just a couple inches or a foot or so. These boxes aren't designed to be, directly in the weather. So we'll put those inside above the door. Now what happens is the ozone boxes put out a constant flow of ozone. How they do it is there's like a little ring inside the box. And there's like a little pole in the middle to keep it simple. And that creates just an electrical charge like a spark plug would do. And the spark is what creates the ozone. Mm-hmm. So this just puts out like a curtain of ozone. Ozone is heavier than air, so you always have to hang it up high. Okay. And then it comes down and forms this invisible wall almost of ozone that runs 24/7. And then we mark the doors on the outside and inside with UV paint using daubers. Just put little dots on there, and you can rub it in with a rag. And then the birds see the weird stuff, and they go fly through it. And every time they fly in or out, they get this breathing issue. So a bird's resting heartbeat could be 200 beats a minute. Really, really fast. And when they fly, it's 30% more. So they're really breathing heavy when they fly. And the key is when they fly through a door, it only takes a second, right? In, out, in, out, in, out. But when you have the ozone there, the wind takes it too. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll put an ozone box above the door, and maybe we'll put one 20 feet in. Mm-hmm. This way they hit it once and twice. Depends on the circumstance. But over time, what happens is the birds learn every time they fly through that door, there's severe irritation. So that's the first thing we do. Mark the doors, ozone box, and then we always go with the tank mix. Because what will happen is the tank mix, again, 8 active ingredients, has Invisadigm in it. So anything you spray looks purple. We spray 3 weeks in a row. And the reason we do that is because, we're trying to protect the entryway, but I like to protect the entryway from as far away as possible. So I'll go stand by that entryway and I turn my back to the building and I look out to see what's around me. And if there's a perimeter filled with trees and bushes, or there's a dumpster area or some pallets that are stacked, the birds are in the pallets. They're on the dumpster looking for food. They're for sure in the trees and bushes along the perimeter. I'll spray all those areas, including the loading dock doors, under the loading dock doors, around the loading dock doors, anywhere a bird can think about loafing before they fly through.
Okay.
And that way, when a bird approaches a warehouse, it's all purple. And the trees are so the trees are irritating on the perimeter. If I go land on that dumpster over there, it's irritating. If there's some pallets that are stacked, that's irritating. I try to fly through the door, it's irritating. A lot of times the birds will get underneath. Even when the loading dock doors are closed, they'll sneak through the little openings underneath. So a lot of times we have these little bird pucks that we use. Or we'll use the bird bombs. And what they do is our pucks are different. There's other companies out there that sell these optical pucks that they look like fire, supposedly, and then they outgas.
Okay.
And for our purposes, to put them in little cubby holes, that would work great. But they sell them to put them all over. It's like their big line of defense is these pucks. Okay. But all pucks stop outgassing after a while. So what we do is we do the initial install, the UV paint, ozone box. We spray monthly. And then we have our pucks or our bird bombs that we change out monthly. Not monthly, I'm sorry, quarterly. So, and also we'll do sometimes inside is if there's some really important spots you can't have poop right away, we'll do the gel and UV paint application.
Okay.
And so if there's like a workstation or there's an area where they store food ready to go out, or anywhere that you really don't want poop, we'll put gel and UV paint up. So now we're taking care of indoor spots, we're taking care of the door, we're taking care of outside spots, we're taking care of around the doors. And then what happens is if they get audited, the auditor comes in and says, well, even if there's a bird flying around, so I don't have to write you up because there's a bird in here.
Yeah.
We have to get your doors open all day long. And the auditor doesn't have any. So what are you doing? We said, well, we got the ozone boxes, we got the UV paint. We have a guy coming monthly to spray the whole exterior of the building and any loafing areas. We got these bird pucks over here, and we got the the dumpsters we got the bird bombs. So we have a program in place, and the auditor really can't add anything other than maybe leave the doors closed more often, which they would do if they didn't. If they're not using the door, they close it. Yeah. So that helps get people through the auditing process. And what happens is by creating this constant pressure with the ozone box, the tank mix, the gel UV paint, putting these simple things together and being consistently in place. And when we're not there, we spray once a month, but when we're not there, you got the bird pucks, you got the bird bombs, you got the ozone.
Yeah.
So there's constant pressure. And then what happens is if there's a little bit of housekeeping done inside, make sure there's no loose seed laying around, limit the water sources available, just a little bit of working together, you'll be able to drop those birds in no time at all. And it gets better and better and better and better. We see it all the time. You have a big problem, you treat it the right way, treat it like you do any other rodent, once a month, and it gets better and better and better. And that's good for the customer, and it's good for the pest control provider because pest control providers live on reoccurring revenue.
Yeah.
That's how they build their wealth. That's how they make money. And also that's how you solve the problem. You can't just go in and do one thing and leave. It has to be a continuous, nonstop thing. So the ozone boxes, again, you hang them above a door. The ozone will drop about 10 feet or so and then turns back into oxygen. It makes the place smell better. Doesn't hurt anybody. The ozone that comes out of the boxes is OSHA falls within.
Safe amount.
That's really, really safe. It falls within the World Health Organization limits and the OSHA limits. So it's just a great new tool. Like I said, if you hung an ozone box up all by itself, it would bother the birds, but they wouldn't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
So you got to use the UV paint. You got to do this. You got to do that. And it's still cheaper than throwing a big net up inside. That's what happens. I want to net the inside of this warehouse, or we want to net the canopy outside of the loading dock door that's open. It doesn't prevent the birds from getting in. So what we do is we want to keep we want to make the birds pay every time they come in or out. And we've seen it where we had one place. It was a chemical place in New Jersey. They had 2 garage doors and 2 man doors. Man doors are just doors where people walk in and out.
Okay.
In case you didn't know.
I didn't know.
Learn something new every day. Yeah, it's man door. So that makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about. But they had 2 doors, 2 garage doors. And what we did is we put an ozone box above each door, and we did UV paint, and we sprayed. And they had about 30 birds that were flying in and out. And the birds flew in and out a couple of times. And then what happened was they got a call. The birds weren't coming out. Oh. They were stuck inside. So our pest control guy went there, forcibly chased them out, caught a few and chased them out with backpack blowers and spraying.
Yeah.
And then they've been bird free for over almost a year now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, occasionally you may get one that goes in there, but it's still way better. And they actually hired us to do another couple bigger areas where they have the same problem. So it works. It's just another tool to put in your toolbox, but that's the way of keeping birds out of warehouses and over there.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Why do you want things to look purple?
I don't want them to look purple.
Well, why do you want the birds to think it's...
So you could use any color. It could be any visual. So like even the owl is a great visual. And what happens is birds are part of the food chain. It always comes down to how they act. So birds are part of the food chain. If they see a novel object, anything new that you put into a place is a novel object. For a resident bird or even a bird that's migratory, if they see something weird that they haven't seen before, it's a novel object that represents danger.
Okay.
So they'll avoid it for a little bit. But then what happens is birds will pick, poke, and pry. Like if you put a fake owl out there, the first couple of days, owls will be 50 yards away. I'm just checking it out. But then what happens is there's always one. It gets a little closer, a little closer. Now, next thing you know, they're sitting on top of the owl because nothing bad happened. So we use the UV paint and the Invisidye because I learned from a guy that makes duck decoys. I think it's in Wisconsin. And he was making duck decoys, and to make them more realistic, he put UV paint on them, just a little bit.
Okay.
And he noticed that more birds came in because the decoys looked real. But then being a guy, this is to duck a couple of these decoys in a bucket of paint, see what happens. So he really just globbed the paint on the decoys and puts them out in the field. No birds will land in the field.
Wow.
Because it was a novel object. Birds see UV in their everyday life.
Okay.
They see it in their feathers. They identify male, female. Predatory birds will actually hunt rodents by following their urine trails, which have UV in them, a different type of UV.
Yeah.
So they're used to UV. So when they see something UV that's really weird, it makes them take note.
Okay.
And then we just hit them with the ozone or the tank mix.
Gotcha.
And like I said, our stuff dries clear.
Okay.
So we're good to go. And that's how we do it. Thanks, everybody.